Okay, now I need to introduce the man of the hour. All right, so I was telling Herb Silverman, the founder and president emeritus of the Secular Coalition for America, that he's really a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. So without Herb, the Secular Coalition for America would never have existed. It would not exist today, because Herb had this crazy vision. You ready for the crazy vision? It's a crazy vision that all of the different organizations in the movement could work together and achieve more. I know this sounds pretty ridiculous and out there, but that was Herb's vision, and Herb's vision now has been in effect for more than 10 years, and I can tell you that this movement is a radically different place than it was when I got involved in 2003. We are working together, and we are incredibly more successful because of it. And that is in large part due to the vision of Herb Silverman and his work getting this organization off the ground. In addition to those very important facts about Herb, Herb also ran for governor of the state of South Carolina because he learned that there was a law in South Carolina banning atheists from holding public office. His run for governor as the candidate without a prayer was not successful, but he did write a pretty sweet book about it called Candidate Without a Prayer. We have a few copies of those available for generous donors to the Secular Coalition, so if that's something that interests you, a signed copy of Candidate Without a Prayer, definitely come find someone and we can help you with that. Herb travels around the world, he gives speeches, he takes part in debates. He's a regular columnist for On Faith, the religious blog for the Washington Post. Currently, he contributes to Huffington Post and Faith Street. He's awesome, and he's always properly dressed for any occasion, whether his pants be short or long, and whatever awesome message his t-shirt proclaims. So please give a big hand for Herb Silverman.
Thanks a lot for that wonderful introduction, Amanda. You know, when she mentioned short or long pants, I wear long pants once a year, and yesterday was that one day. I do appreciate the opportunity to be here and to describe a little of the background of how the Secular Coalition got started. In the early 1990s, when Amanda would have been a camper at Camp Quest, had there been a Camp Quest, I joined a number of organizations because each was working on causes I supported. But these organizations saw themselves competing for funds from what they saw as a fixed pie of donors. I knew we needed to grow the pie to benefit all of these organizations and our movement as a whole. The organizations were spending too much time arguing about labels: atheist, agnostic, humanist, freethinker, etc., and too little time showing our strength in numbers and cooperating on issues that affect all secular Americans. Here's an interesting distinction between Christians and secularists. Christians have the same unifying word, but fight over theology. Secularists have the same unified theology, but fight over words. At least our wars are only verbal. It might surprise you to know that I give a lot of credit to the Christian Coalition. Though I disagreed with everything they stood for, they had a terrific motto: bring people together who have common interests, put aside minor theological differences, work on important political issues, and grab media attention. That was their plan to change the culture and make politicians take notice. their strategy of demonizing atheists while moving this country closer to a theocracy worked all too well, especially in states like mine, South Carolina. I'm willing to learn from anyone who has something to teach us. The Christian Coalition and its religious right successors now argue less about dogma and cooperate on political goals, like saying our country was founded as a Christian nation that supports faith-based initiatives, preventing women from having access to all forms of reproductive health care, calling evolution just a theory, and opposing gay rights. But speaking of gay rights, the religious right has essentially lost that battle. In another generation, I expect people will look back and ask, what was the big deal about gay marriage? The most obvious and effective lesson we can learn from the LGBT movement is, as has already been mentioned, to come out of the closet and be openly secular. Yes. Attitudes change rapidly when people learn that their friends, neighbors, and even family members were gay. The LGBT movement deserves enormous credit for framing and publicizing their issues, forming a big tent that allows for cooperation between activists and laid-back gays, and getting politicians to take notice. And so it should be with us. In the late 1990s, several non-theistic organizations met with me as a facilitator. It was a unique and worthwhile experience for these groups simply to sit down and talk to one another. We called ourselves the Coalition for the Community of Reason. The organizations agreed on cultural and political goals, but often couldn't reach consensus on how best to cooperate to achieve our shared aims. Some favored informal alliances, while others of us pushed for a more structured and activist model. So on November 2nd, 2002, the Godless Americans March in Washington took place. It was the first such public gathering of its kind, organized by the American Atheists. The next morning, I met for breakfast at 7 a.m. with leaders of 3 former Coalition for the Community of Reason organizations: Atheist Alliance, the Institute for Humanist Studies, and Internet Infidels, to talk about forming a new coalition, which we named the Secular Coalition for America. Shortly thereafter, the Secular Student Alliance joined. We wanted to break down walls and build bridges among atheist and humanist groups. We started with all volunteers and no budget, but we had a vision and a plan. We intended to increase the visibility of and respect for non-theistic viewpoints and to protect and strengthen the secular character of our government. Formerly rival non-theistic organizations pledged, actually, I take that back. We don't much like pledges since under God was inserted. We agreed to cooperate on the 95% we have in common rather than argue about the 5% that sets us apart. Many of you here today showed us how to succeed far beyond our initial vision. The Secular Coalition has grown to 16 national member organizations, with more on the way soon, and a dedicated staff of 6. Not quite what the religious right has, but a respectable start. We've had a few bumps along the road and some growing pains as we've expanded, but the trend has been and continues to be upward for the Secular Coalition and for our movement. Since each member organization has strict limits on lobbying, the Secular Coalition incorporated as a political advocacy group to allow unlimited lobbying on behalf of secular Americans. As you heard, it now has 50 state Secular Coalition, and we hope, if you're not already, that you will become involved in your states. Again, that's what we learned from the Christian Coalition, not to be a top-down, but a bottom-up organization where you work within your local communities. I served as the first president of the Secular Coalition for 10 years, followed by Dave Neosi and our current president, Amanda Metzges here. The Secular Coalition has become a lot more professional. For instance, in numbering board agendas items, I used to go from number 12 to number 14. They don't do that anymore. In fact, I think they specially had me speak here on Friday the 13th. And incidentally, my book, in numbering chapters, I went from 12 to 14 with an asterisk that some books use either Arabic, Roman, or elevator floor numbers. Right. And I chose the elevator floor method. Now, discrimination still exists against blacks, women, gays, and Jews, but neither as overtly nor permissibly as it once was. Politicians pay attention to these groups because they have well-organized advocacy groups and their constituents. Now it is our turn to gain that respect. For too long, our non-theistic community has been considered politically inconsequential. We may be the last minority against whom intolerance and discrimination are not only permitted, but also sometimes promoted by political leaders at every level. Secular Americans are the fastest growing demographic, now over 20%, more than Jews, Muslims, Mormons, Buddhists, and Hindus combined. The percentage is even higher among younger people. So I expect we will have a bright future no matter what those of us here do. But it is up to us to help make the future brighter sooner. The Secular Coalition advocates for those millions without God beliefs, as we did yesterday with our congressional representatives, which was a terrific success. Improving the public perception of secular Americans is as important to many of us as pursuing a particular political agenda. Politicians in both parties say we have freedom of religion, but not freedom from religion. What can that possibly mean? That we are allowed to worship the God of our choice, but that we can't be good without any gods? Politicians might think that they are being tolerant when they express support for all faiths. Instead, we expect to hear them publicly to express support for all faiths and none, to promote freedom of conscience for all people. Atheists and humanists are not asking for special rights, but we do expect and demand equal rights.
Yes.
Government must not favor one religion over another or religion over non-religion. Religious liberty must include the right for taxpayers to choose whether to support religion and which to support. Forcing taxpayers to privilege and subsidize religions they don't believe in is akin to forcing them to put money in the collection plates of churches, synagogues, or mosques. As the secular coalition continues to grow and gain influence, I hope we will all one day see an America that respects non-theistic viewpoints, and an America where the influence of conservative religion is mainly limited to within the walls of churches, not the halls of Congress.
All right.